Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside the Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties. Thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Good to be back. It's warmer in here than it was outside the breeze through. I'm convinced on Saturday night it would have been warmer in the beer cave than it was outside while we were reacting to NC State, North Carolina.
Are you suggesting perhaps the alcohol was warming me up? Because I wasn't cold at all. I had no problems.
Dude. Now,
I had no problems.
Now, I've seen you drunker.
Yes.
But you were feeling it on Saturday night.
I blame Will, my friend Will Miller.
Mm-hmm.
He had Fireball. So I started with
real Fireball.
Real, yeah. Because I only drank it once I just established that it was the real deal.
Because remember, I actually took that Fireball airplane bottle and put it up to the light to see if it was the real deal while we were in the RV lot.
So yeah, there were two of those.
Oh boy.
On top of the Colonel.
Oh boy. You rolled up drinking.
Yeah, the Colonel was. I started with the Colonel, which was good. Good base.
And then you had beer.
I didn't have that many beers. I had like.
Dude, what are you talking
Pre-game.
about? You had 2 full tumblers of beer while we were.
No. Oh, while we were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying I had the Colonel, right? Then I get to the tailgate. I had a Coors Light, and I had a Fireball, and then I had another Coors Light before kickoff.
Yeah.
Then I had another Fireball, and I didn't drink during the game. Then
you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. You were rather loud in the press box.
Halftime went back out, and that was that. And then I walked down by you.
Yeah.
And then I had some more beers.
Okay. Shout out to one of our listeners who pulled a video grab from the After Dark where you're motioning to somebody off camera like beer.
The boss. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking to Jessica?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you get me more beer?
Can you give me beer?
Anyway, thanks to everybody who had checked us out on YouTube live. Thanks to everybody who popped on the StreamYard. And thanks to the folks who actually dropped by our location at the Breeze Through. And of course, the biggest thanks to Adam over at Breeze
Yes.
Through.
Big time.
You like to joke that I'm the extra engineer. No, Adam was the extra engineer.
Big time.
On Saturday, because that dude was running an Ethernet cable around the building through the car wash. I'm not kidding. He had to literally run it through the car wash.
How long is that cord?
It's like 500 feet.
Oh my God.
That's not a cheap cord, by the way.
That's amazing.
I've had to pay for Ethernet cables to get things in this room. This is a 10 by 10 space. And Ethernet cables, if you get the right ones, can cost you a pretty penny.
Yeah.
That bad boy was 500 feet to get to my laptop. So Adam's the real OG. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about the game in real time, immediately reacting to NC State's win over North Carolina. Now that you're sober.
Sure.
And we can take
Adam's a problem solver. Do you know who could solve your problems? Especially your digital and print needs. Copiers Plus.
Yes.
Go to copiers-plus.com because you don't know what you don't know. And on Saturday, I didn't know what I didn't know. So you got to ask somebody. You got to ask Adam for help. You got to ask Copiers Plus for help. Again, check them out. It's copiers-plus.com.
So now that we're a couple days away from it and sober, you look at what happened on Saturday. The thing that I keep coming back to is it's not a Mack Brown problem for North Carolina. It is a North Carolina problem where in the modern era, they have this attitude towards NC State football that does not translate well on the football field. There is an attitude if you feel that you are better than or you are superior than, if we have every recruiting advantage, we have the money, we're the school that high school kids actually want to go to, unless Larry Fedora just decides, I don't feel like recruiting kids out of Charlotte, right? If that's your attitude, you have to remind the other school from time to time, hey, guys, little brother, let's put you in your place. Not just let's roll on the football field and see what happens. And that was the general kind of attitude that I picked up on Saturday, especially in the first quarter, where you and I were both in agreement. There was no juice for the Tar Heels to start that game, and it was effectively over at halftime. Yes, North Carolina had their 3 touchdown scoring drives, but you never really felt, even the most hardcore NC State shit believer, did not think, oh, this game is going to get out of hand, because you knew that State's defense was going to hold it down.
Okay, no, just because we didn't just get here, I can't let you slide on that it's a North Carolina problem. John Bunting absolutely prioritized this game. Mack Brown, the first time around, absolutely prioritized this game. Larry Fedora had his moments. Obviously, the Geo game. You would have thought Carolina won the national champion. I was actually on Carolina's sideline with TJ Yates that day.
Yeah,
and the amount of pure emotion and joy on their sideline that day, they cared.
Yeah,
and so I don't think you can just yada 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 all of the times that Carolina has cared about this game.
Different groups, different players.
Century, right?
You talk about dogs, things like that. Marquise Williams, you and I are in agreement.
Yeah.
He's that kind of dude that's going to go out there. He's going to want to win a game. Totally get that part.
But what I'm saying to you, though, is I think you're dismissing Mack's role in this in part. I'm tired of giving Mack a pass.
That's fine.
Like, I'm sober as the day is long
that's
now.
Fine.
Okay?
That's fine.
I'm tired of Mack getting a pass. The defense, yes, sir, is your responsibility. It's not go talk to Gene because he's showing up today. All right? The idea that you came back and you're going to run away with this thing because you're back. Nah, man. Your team has to have an identity. It doesn't. That's super odd to me. You are Carolina. You do have the Jordan brand. Every time you see an interview, the sneakers are on the wall. You got all these things going for you, except you're a mentally weak team. And that starts with the coach. Okay. And if you want to be a CEO, there's nothing wrong with being a CEO. Then you have to have other people that it filters down to, and the attitude of your team and the identity of your team filters down to. It can't just be a bunch of happy handshakes and a bunch of happy horse shit on recruiting day.
Yeah.
It has to be when you show up and the money's on the table, your team is there. And quite frankly, his team has not been there when the money is on the table, in spite of having Sam Howell, who was ridiculously good for his 3 seasons as a starter, and despite having Drake May. And by the way, this wasn't Phillip Rivers throwing the ball to checks notes, only Jericho Cotchery for a couple of those years. You're talking about guys, they've had stacks on stacks at the skill positions.
Yes.
So this is a failure of Mack Brown. Okay, this is not a Carolina failure. This is a Mack Brown failure. And if you think I'm coming at him hard right now, I had the same energy for Mike Krzyzewski in that last year. Sometimes the identity of your program as the coach, it's on you. You're the ones who put your players and your program in this position.
Yeah.
You have to own that. You have to wear that. To Mack's credit, to his credit, in the postgame, he did. He owned it, he wore it, and he said, that's as bad as I've seen us play. Those were his words. So credit to him for that. But no. I'm not going to let you get away with saying that it's a Carolina problem, because I don't believe that. I've been there. I've seen it.
And I've been there.
I was there.
Too,
you want to here's a deeper cut.
And the attitude is when we feel like it.
No, I know. But here's a deeper cut. I was there when there was a person who bought Chuck Amato at the time, okay, put his red shoes up for an auction to raise money for the Wolfpack Club. Yeah. A huge former Carolina football player bought those shoes. Yeah. I was there when that person gave those shoes to John Bunting. So you can't sit here and say that there weren't, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time over one sentence,
Joe,
but I'm just trying to say that there are times where they have tuned in and they have cared.
Okay, to that end, I'll give you John Bunting. You're right about John Bunting.
And Elfed too.
No, absolutely freaking not with Elfed. Absolutely not. No. Because and Butch Davis also was very much nonchalant about this stuff too.
I want to beat Miami.
Yes.
I want to beat Florida State.
Yes.
Because those were the ones that he had issues with.
I will give you John Bunting. John Bunting actually felt it. To your point, sometimes I need the reminder that I was in these press conferences too, and John Bunting would do cringy shit like, "Oh yeah, this is the game. I love this game." I remember a press conference when we were all in there, and he's like, "Yeah, we would say beat Cal College, beat Cal College." He was really hyped about that. Okay, and I give John Bunting a lot of credit.
Good thing, by the way.
He trolled. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not knocking it. I was just saying it was kind of cringy in the moment, but I'm not knocking it. And then there was the moment where he got Chuck Amato all pissed off at Carter Finley Stadium because they happened to be just hanging around the entrance for the Wolfpack. And Chuck was in his face, and Bunting just sat there, stone-faced, like, sure, buddy, whatever. So, yes, John Bunting felt it because he was an old-timer, very Roy Williams-esque, because he grew up in a time where this was the thing that mattered. Yep. However, there's a larger problem for North Carolina football in particular when they feel like it. Maybe that's how I should have been more specific. When North Carolina feels like it. There's a reason why we call them the sleeping giant. There's a reason why we look at everything they have going for them, and you sit there and you wonder, why can't you get your shit together? So you're hard on Mack Brown. I'm hard on the program because for a program in the state that has every advantage going for it, it's still shocking to me that they still have a attitude that is very much a football, specifically when we feel like it. They did it with ECU. They do it with App State. Look at the attitude when they play App State. They shouldn't. We're too good to be playing App State. No, you're not. Right. Based on what exactly? What are you too good for in football? Every other thing at Carolina, they check the box, man. They absolutely check the box. There is a history of winning. There's a history of excellence. There's GOATs right down to Aaron Matson, for heaven's sake, who wins national championships, not just as a player, but as a freaking coach in her first year at 24 years old. There's the standard that you like to talk about with basketball.
It's different.
It's a different standard altogether.
Different than even I understand.
And I would say that there's a different standard for non-revenue sports too when it comes to Carolina athletics, okay? So why is it with football specifically, there's these ups and downs, and sometimes they care, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you have a coach that gets it. Sometimes you get a coach that thinks you're bigger than that. You're never going to lap the competition if you don't take it seriously, consistently, with owning the state the way you think you should own the state. You catch my drift now?
Mm-hmm. No, the first time around, he went 5 years without losing to anybody in the state back when the Big Four played every year.
That was back in the day, and there's a prioritization of winning the state championship, and that's why he was emotional after the Duke game. I get all that stuff. But again, it permeates to a game like this where the mission was not accomplished. And not only that, shout out to Hunter, man, who came by after the game and was telling state fans to shut up. He's like, they planted a flag on your field last year. Where was the juice? And again, that gets back to, I think, where you and I do agree, that is on Mack Brown ultimately. On the flip side of that, I will tell you where I was wrong about something. I didn't think it was going to happen, Joe, but it happened. Dave Doeren's out of the Herb zone. Earlier this year, I said he entered the Herb Sendek zone. And to be clear about the Herb Sendek zone, the old NC State coach, it was the attitude of you've made all your friends and you've made all your enemies and nobody's going to change their mind. You are who you are. The people who are done with you are going to find every reason to still feel that they're done with you. And those who support you will constantly argue into the ether with those people who are never going to hear it otherwise. But from the Duke game on to the way Dave Doeren handled the MJ Morris self-benching, to the fact that it was not a fluke of a win against North Carolina, that they dominated the Tar Heels. And you look at the way Dave has handled himself publicly now, the cigars, the culture. You have Peyton Wilson on the field talking about that stuff too. I think even the most argumentative Dave Doeren detractor would go, yeah, man, all the props in the world for how you turned this season around. And even I, the Dave Doeren hater, I'm speaking as somebody who actually likes Dave Doeren, but somebody if somebody doesn't like Dave Doeren, their general attitude would go, yeah, man, tip of the cap, dude. You actually have this identity. There's a culture. It might be boring, as our listener Lauren pointed out on Saturday night, but it works and it's getting the job done against the Tar Heels.
Yeah, he's done his best work this year now to close the season out the way that they did. There is still a slightly frustrating part of this.
Oh, sure.
In the sense that their spring game was played in a driving rainstorm, and it was obvious that Kevin Concepcion was their best player.
Right.
It was obvious on that day. Right. What amounted to a shell drill. Right. So why did it take you the first 7 games of the year to figure out who your best players? But all credit to Dave and to Robert and I since that Duke game to say, you know what? We need to stop beating ourselves. We need to highlight our best players, and on defense to clean up the way that they have. And of course, Peyton Wilson turns in another game that he did on Saturday. Now, Dave's post game was interesting. There were some layers to it.
There were a lot of layers.
There was the call for money.
Yeah.
There was the I thought in person on the ACC network set he was better than he was obviously in the locker room. We got a question about that on Threads from Princeton King. Any thoughts on Doeren calling some college kids pieces of shit? Yeah, I didn't love that.
Yeah,
I didn't love that. It's okay to say what you're going to say about the school, right? And someone was like, yeah, I think it was Hunter actually, who was like, it's Drake May had to apologize for basically saying you can't get into Carolina, but Dave's allowed to call Carolina pieces of shit. And I'm like,
that's a Bubba thing.
And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't love that part of the messaging. There's a way to get around some of that. There's a way to do what he did on the set on the set, he was like, I'm not going to get ugly here. I'm just going to tell you that, this game matters to our fan base and it matters to me.
Real quick, though, the what you just said about Drake May, Hunter's right. You're right about that stuff. It actually kind of furthers my point about the general attitude from Carolina. It's almost like they don't want to. No, go talk your shit about NC State, because that's the mindset you need to consistently beat them, not apologize for saying stuff that, hey, man, I think most people recognize. So, and this is a Bubba. Look, I love Bubba Cunningham. He does an excellent job in North Carolina. But oftentimes I think they're a little too quick to be like, whoa, let's just put this away. Not understanding how the news cycle works. They say what they like when Courtney Banghart didn't need to apologize for what she said. Just kind of take the grief that goes with it, go out there and settle on the basketball court and move on with your life. And that's kind of the thing that you have to do with North Carolina football too. Don't apologize for that stuff. Go out there and win. So all that, I think all this kind of ties together. But yeah, I can see it. I can see it anyway. Like there's also, I get that they invite them into the locker room. Yeah. And these are the kinds of things that are said in a locker room.
Well, you're fired up when you're doing that. Who's there, who's not.
Sure. I get all that stuff too.
Next topic, please.
So, Dave Doeren doesn't look like he's going to go anywhere because all the jobs are taken up, unless he goes to Duke. I'm kidding. So the real question in the offseason.
That was pretty good.
The only question for NC State in the offseason, as you mentioned earlier, is what happens with Casey.
Kevin Concepcion. Yeah.
Okay. I think people will step up. I think.
I think this dovetails
the
nicely.
money's not going to MJ Morris, right?
I think this dovetails nicely into a conversation about Mike Elko and leaving Duke.
Sure.
We don't get upset when a coach leaves for more money. So a coach has a talent, they're rewarded for that talent. Kevin Concepcion clearly has a talent. He should be rewarded for that talent without some 50-year-old guy sitting there going, it was so much better back in the day when these players knew that scholarship's worth.
Right. Okay. Sure, whatever. Free education. Yeah, so that's going to be NC State's big offseason question.
And that's why Dave mentioned it specifically in the postgame. Yes.
And we know about Mike Elko, but what about Mack Brown? And what does his future hold at North Carolina? Josh Graham, WSJS, went to the press conference for Mack Brown after the game and straight up asked him, because remember, there was a statement given to the Football Insiders that, here we go again with the recruiting stuff. And people say this about Mack Brown because it's an anti-recruiting thing. But then earlier in the week, ahead of the NC State game, Mack was asked about those statements. And he said, well, no, that was Jeremy who made that statement, and kind of moved on from that. So Josh followed up after the game. Like, have you given any thought about what's going to happen? Are you going to retire?
Have you indicated to guys on the team that you're going to be back next year?
I think we addressed that last week.
You said it was Jeremy's statement.
Yeah, I'm planning on being back. I hadn't even thought about it until you all brought it up. It gets brought up every year. When you're 72, that's a regular. You can just mark it down. It's the Thursday before the last game, before recruiting starts, because everybody that's competing against you, and you all had a dead day. You needed something to write, so it all fit in there.
So for clarity's sake, you're going to be back.
Yes.
Okay, that seems pretty definitive. Real quick, props to Josh.
Yeah.
Props to Josh on that one. I give Josh a lot of shit. He knows it comes from a good place, but I'll use this as a prime example of where Josh really does a good job in these settings, because he had a follow-up question that brought up, hey, man, these were things that were said before. Let's get some clarity. And a lot of people will not ask questions in press conferences in these particular settings. So props to Josh on that one. But it kind of went on a journey there for Mack. It went, I'm planning to come back. That gives you wiggle room. Oh, that's just a dead time in the week. That's what we expect. Okay, gives you some wiggle room. He wasn't all that definitive. But then he said, yes, he is coming back. And obviously with the early signing period, you don't want to indicate one way or the other of what's going on. My thoughts on this have changed.
Okay.
My thoughts on this have changed. I was of the general attitude that this was going to be it for Mack Brown. And he was going to walk away pointing to, I've reset the program. Now you guys can go off in whatever direction you want to go in. I did my job. And he leaves, and I still stand by this, as the best coach that Carolina football has ever had. Even without a conference championship, even without a national championship, all that stuff, for all sorts of intangible reasons, the best coach North Carolina has ever had in football. But One thing I forgot to take into account, and this is something that you point out to me all the time, is that these guys are incredibly stubborn. And I feel like it went from everybody's kind of on the same page as to where it's going to go to I don't think everybody's on the same page now. And I'd be really curious to see how the conversations go between Bubba Cunningham, the AD at North Carolina, Mack Brown, and the direction they want to go in with coordinators. Because I can't imagine if Mack is going to come back, that Gene Chizik's coming back with him. What do you do with the quarterback? We've been bringing up the Phillip Rivers. You've brought up the Phillip Rivers analogy to Drake May. Well, if we take it a step further, what happened after Phillip Rivers? They went through like the sea of QBs trying to find the port in the storm that was going to save them. And we went through all sorts of guys until they finally landed on, the Russell Wilson, Mike Glennon era. It took them a minute, man. So who is that next guy for North Carolina QB? Now the transfer portal is different.
Yeah, that's changed the equation.
But you also have to hit in the transfer portal too. So I came away I go into the week thinking this is it for Mack. I come out of this going, I don't know. I could see this being stubborn, him coming back, and also next season not going the way he thinks it's going to go.
Sure. I mean, they're in a reset mode now. Yep. I mean, they were going to be with or without Mack. So you have Drake May. Like you said, the defense needs to be solved. And yes, it's Mack's job to solve the defense. Period. It'll be interesting how they handle things going forward. They've tried to build through recruiting because of all the advantages that you've talked about.
That's the attitude.
I could see them shifting this year and trying to go through the portal, maybe Florida, a la Florida State.
Yeah.
Because they do have that money. So I could see them trying to do something like that. There are plenty of players who will be in the portal. Man, mind explosion. What if they're the ones who win the Kevin Concepcion bidding war?
Oh, okay. That's even wilder than... Nah.
That would be hysterical.
No.
Never say never in the triangle. It'll be interesting to see what they do because I thought this was the year. And when they were 6-0, we're looking at it. We're going, there's a reason they're better. It's because finally those classes from Mack's first couple of years are now older.
Yeah.
College football has gotten older. Look at Bo Nix at Oregon. If you haven't watched Oregon this year, it's wild. Like it's like watching an NFL quarterback playing college football. It's wild to watch them play. So college football has gotten older. I thought it was not a coincidence this year that Carolina's defense, the way that they started the season, was a function of them being older. So, do you try to restart that cycle with an older coach? I don't think so. I think the logical move, if you're Carolina and Mack is staying, which is what he's saying, you go hard and heavy FSU style into the portal and you make big moves to try to hit this thing while you have it. That's what you try to do. You also need to hire a better defensive coordinator.
Well, but the problem is they've gone through this already.
I
remember Gene
understand
Chizik was supposed to be the one who fixed the issues before that.
I get that.
So it's not as simple as go and hire a better defensive coordinator.
Sometimes it is.
They thought they did.
I know, but sometimes that's really what it is.
Okay, we'll see. We
shall
see.
Look at Matt Canada. The Steelers finally broke the 400-yard mark yesterday.
Yeah,
finally.
Funny how that works. All right, let's get into some housekeeping, shall we?
Housekeeping.
We are recording this on a Cyber Monday. Go to breakingtea.com/OG where you can get 20% off hoodies right now at breakingtea.com. They also have a new NC State shirt, by the way. That just has culture across it, tying into what Peyton Wilson said, tying into what Dave Doeren has been talking about when it comes to culture and what it is over NC State. But more importantly, we have a new shirt. We have a new hoodie. We brought the tripartisan flag to full fruition. It is now on a t-shirt. So here it is. It's on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. It's a North Carolina flag, but instead of the blue, red, and white of a NC flag, it is a Dukish blue, an NC State red, and a Carolina blue. And instead of the NC, it says OG. Instead of the 1 star that goes between those two NCs, it's 5 stars because, of course, and it has positive vibes only on the top scroll. And on the bottom scroll, May 3rd, 2023, which is the first day of the podcast. So you can go to breakingtea.com/OG. You got the hoodie as well. I actually bought a hoodie this morning. The hoodie's nice, isn't it?
Bargain. Are you kidding?
$44, 20% off right now at breakingtea.com/OG. Go cop that shirt and take advantage of the other deals that are taking place right now at breakingtea.com. $5 mystery shirts. So I bought my brother and my dad Miami mystery shirts. I don't know what I'm going to get. It could be a Marlins shirt.
That's
could
cool.
be a Dolphin shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be any number of things.
Clever.
So $5 mystery shirts over at breakingtea.com. Big thanks to State Farm and Matt Davis for sponsoring Ovias and Gilio. Check them out at theoginsurance.com, insuregarner.com, or give them a call directly at 919-779-8277.
Yeah, great way to save yourself some money on all of your insurance needs. Give Matt a call, 919-779-8277.
Also, Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, bugsbite.com is the website. I actually dropped by to go say hey to Hayes, the OGs. And I'm like,
Yeah, he wants us out in the RV lot.
we were out in the RV lot.
No, he wants us to do a show.
Oh, yes. I talked to
ready.
Hayes. He showed me. He's like, you can do it right in there. I'm like, you know what? Next football season. Let's make that happen.
There might be a hockey opportunity.
Wait, does
there.
the RV stay there even during hockey season?
Joe, when you have a space, when you pay for a spot in the RV lot, you get to do whatever you want, sir. Whatever you want.
That's got me thinking, because remember,
I told him we needed an Ethernet cord. That's all we need.
Yeah. Or like a really good hotspot. One of those 5G hotspots.
Yeah, when there's nobody out there, it'll work.
It might work.
I know it does work. The termite solutions that were put down in my mulch beds last week. Man, I didn't even know. Because
that's where they hang out, dude.
No, I know, but they called me. Like Hayes calls me and says, "Hey, man, we're gonna do the termite treatment." And it wasn't Hayes; it was his guy. And I go, "Okay." I go, "You'll love the crawl space." I go, "You can walk in, and I have like one of those like full size. You open a door, you walk in crawl spaces." He's like, "No, we're not gonna be in the crawl space." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "No, we want to get the termites before they get to your house." I was like, "Oh, that's why you're the smart people handling all of this, because I don't know anything about anything." So yes, they went and treated the mulch beds for those termites to make sure that they don't get to the house. Very smart, the people over at Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority.
Like us.
Save yourself some money. All kinds of offers. Hayes does not believe in contracts, but he does believe in saving you money. So go to bugsbite.com.
All right. You've been telling me this for a couple of weeks now.
Oh, are we going to do it?
That Florida State's going to get screwed in the college football
Are we going to
playoff.
get into what they call in the wrestling business fantasy booking right now?
Yes. And I always tell you, these things will work themselves out. They'll work themselves out. But the first domino fell over the weekend, and that was Louisville fumbling the bag against Kentucky. Bruh.
Devin Leary, Pac Pro,
Come on.
trying to get State into the Orange Bowl. Crying.
Come on, man. Come on. By the way, put a pin in the Orange Bowl, because we did get a question on Reddit about the backdoor scenarios for the local teams. But let's talk about
There's only one local team now.
Somebody had a question.
Okay.
So Florida State, the first shoe fell. Louisville lost, which sets up an ACC championship game against a 2-loss Louisville team. Not ideal. You throw on top of that Florida State is missing Jordan Travis for the rest of the season because of a devastating injury. And then on top of that, they spotted a mediocre Florida team, 12 points to start the game. And it was still a game in the fourth quarter. They eventually pulled it out. It was fine, but it was not a great game by the Seminoles. That being said,
that was not Cardell Jones coming in and showing people, oh, we don't need the starting quarterback. That was Tate Roadmaker looking very much like somebody named Tate Roadmaker.
Yeah. That being said, they can still take care of business against Louisville on Saturday at Bank of America Stadium. And if things work themselves out, there's no way they're getting left out. If things stand,
I feel like I need the board behind me, but
do you want to go grab the board?
I say, here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
I think Florida State has one path into the playoff and one path only.
Okay.
And that is for Georgia to beat Alabama, to remain unbeaten, for Washington to beat Oregon.
Not so easy.
Which I don't think is going to happen.
Not an easy task.
And for Michigan to beat Iowa. So one of those things, Michigan beating Iowa, I think you can put in the bank.
I'm telling you right now. I'm kind of joking, but not really. Either Jim Harbaugh is incredibly overpaid as a head coach who has missed just about half the season through a variety of
I think
suspensions.
it's more.
He missed what? The
He's
first
missed 7 games.
He's
7 to 12.
He's, so more than half the games. So he misses the first 4 games of the season because of the whole cheeseburger thing. I know it's not just about cheeseburgers. And then, of course, you get the sign stealing scandal and everything else, and they run that race and go 3-0. Now he's back for this game against Iowa. I'm telling you right now, Iowa's going to win that game like 13-10. Okay,
You have not been watching Iowa the last 3 weeks the same way I have been. I understand.
Does not matter because Iowa is one of those stupid teams that's going to like throw a wrench and everything. So watch Iowa win, and then it'll. Now, of course, I'm kidding because Jim Harbaugh was there throughout the entire week. The only thing he didn't do was be there on game day itself.
There was definitely a buzzer. You cannot convince me otherwise.
Yeah. Like I'm being facetious when I say, well, like, what is Harbaugh really doing? I get it. He was there the entire week, and those teams were incredibly prepared, and they got the talent and everything else.
I don't think the committee is going to go galaxy brain though. I think if all 4 of those teams are unbeaten, those 4 teams are in. It's nice and clean. Hands, you wipe your hands.
But if Oregon
you move on to the 12-team era.
So what you're telling me is that Oregon just doesn't swap out Washington.
I think once you start getting into parsing 1-loss teams, that's where they're going to have a very hard time.
Yes.
Because think about it. Alabama lost to Texas. Well, Texas, also a 1-loss team.
One thing you and I can both agree on. If Alabama beats Georgia, both Alabama and Georgia are in the college football
I believe
playoff.
so, yes.
Okay.
I believe so, yes.
You brought up the most intriguing one, not Oregon. Because I think if Oregon beats Washington, it's a wrap. They're in. What about Texas?
You got to leave somebody out, though, Joe.
What about Texas?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, once you start getting into those 1-loss teams, they do not want to parse them because there's not an easy way to parse them.
I can't imagine they leave Oregon out as the Pac-12 champion, considering the Pac-12 throughout the end. If the whole thing is about a snapshot of the entire season, the Pac-12 has been excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Has been excellent in its swan song. So I can't imagine a Pac-12 champion with 1 loss gets left out.
Again, they would have played twice.
Yeah.
And they would each have a win over the other team.
So did they both get in? Do we get double SEC, double Pac-12?
I'm just saying.
Oh, but wait a minute. What about Michigan?
I'm just saying to you, they do not want to get in. The committee does not want to get into parsing with 1-loss teams.
True.
They don't want to do it. So their preference would be to have the 4 conference champions unbeaten and just put those 4 teams in and move it along. When's the last time things just went all according to plan, all according to script?
Yeah, they never did.
It might only even take just Alabama winning on Saturday to get Florida State up out of the paint.
Yeah.
Because we know how this goes.
Florida State can take care of their own business by losing.
But also, quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, and I've seen some people, Bud Elliott, obviously, with his background in Florida State, who are like, Florida State, it shouldn't matter what they look like without Jordan Travis. I disagree. When they went away from the BCS computers, which they did when they went to this playoff and they went to the committee, which I agree with, for the first 70 years of the first 80 years of college football, the people who voted in the AP poll or the coaches poll never talked to each other.
Yeah.
So I agree with the premise of having a committee and using humans. But when you have a committee and you use humans, there is a human element. And if you were to ask me on Selection Sunday if Texas, Oregon, Washington, Alabama with 1 loss, Georgia were 1 loss, if I thought those 5 teams were better than Florida State, I would say absolutely. Florida State without Jordan Travis. Like that has to be part of your math when you're sitting in that room. It can't just be, oh, well, they were this with that quarterback. It's illogical to think that they will not factor in that they do not have their best player. Like, that's illogical.
I think we can all agree, though, that this season, the last season of the 4-team college football playoff, is a perfect crystallization as to why we need to expand the playoff.
This would have been a great year for a 12-team format. The number one reason they needed to expand, though, was to increase the interest in the sport nationally over the course of the season.
But what's
you
funny,
can't just take half of the country and say the games you're playing don't matter.
Yes.
And by the way, if they leave out the Pac-12 champion this year, when it's been the best conference in college football, that is effectively what you're saying anyway.
Now, to your point about expanding the interest, what's wild is that interest in college football has only increased as we've gotten to this point. It's only going to skyrocket from here when they include more teams, not just in November, but October now too, because that's what the college football playoff ultimately does. Yes, it adds inventory. Yes, it will give home teams reasons to sell tickets and everything else. Yes, it will increase the television revenue that comes in. But more importantly, much like the NFL, where everybody's freaking out on a game-by-game basis, what it means for the inclusion of your playoff chances, it's going to do the same thing. And you're not just worried about late November football. You're worried about mid to late October football too, because those have implications as to whether you're going to be in or out.
I think
staying alive.
The expanded playoff is going to do another thing too. It's going to change how regular season schedules are set up.
Yeah.
You will know once you have an automatic qualifying system, just like in college basketball, you will no longer be concerned with, oh man, I'm Florida State, or they play a good schedule. I'm Ohio State. I can't go play somebody good because if I lose, Michigan changed their schedule because they felt like their only path was through their conference wins. Cool. You're going to now see Michigan play a better teams, a better schedule, and those TV partners are going to demand you get rid of the 1 AA games and the terrible games. You're going to play more conference games. They're going to pay more money for it, and it's going to be okay. Everyone's going to have to square that LSU is not going to be the only 2-loss champion in the history of the sport.
Of course, every time we talk about college football, it's brought to you by Wings Over. Wings Over Raleigh, Wings Over Chapel Hill, Wings Over Greenville. Just because the college football season is wrapping up doesn't mean that you don't have opportunities to check out Wings Over. Folks, it's hockey tailgating time. It's, you got the playoffs, the college football playoffs. You've got, you know what? It's the holidays. I got people over. I don't feel like cooking. Let's just entertain. You got people watching bowl games. Wings Over in the house for that too. So go check them out in Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and in Greenville.
I mean, listen, we had another person at the breeze-through come up and be like, you guys with food, like, you don't miss. I was like, because he was like, the wings are legit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, I can't stress this enough, people. We don't even write the ads.
No.
We just talk about things that we like.
We literally wing it for wings. That's what we do.
We talk about things we like. This is how we get there. Like, we're not going to promote something that we don't believe in. So yes, go check them out. Wingsover.com. Order on wingsover.com. Go pick it up on Hillsborough Street there, right across from University Towers. Free parking. Excellent stuff. Oh, that's what it was. They were like, you guys need to really start selling those tater tots. He goes, you guys are not doing a good enough job telling people.
Sold the tater tots.
I think it's maybe me. He's like, okay. You're not doing a good enough job of telling people how amazing the tater tots are.
I love the tater tots. They're really, really good, y'all. Come on now. So again, big thanks to Wings Over for sponsoring Ovius and Giglio. Big thanks to Home Field. Speaking of the college football season, they got incredible throwback.
Speaking of, no, sir.
What?
Open that shirt up. Open that jacket up.
I was going to get to
model that for the people.
I was going to get to
that thing is glorious.
Hold on a second. I was going to get to it. It's a lead up. Yes, you have your college football stuff. Yes, you might want to get yourself a bomber jacket. I actually saw a throwback State Bomber jacket, but I did see a Home Field State Bomber jacket while I was walking around Carter Finley Stadium. So those would be ideal Christmas gifts. Most importantly, it is Cyber Monday. They got great deals going on right now at homefieldapparel.com. But to Joe's point, basketball season. Hey, we got ACC, SEC Challenge this week. People are finally starting to get into the college basketball season, and the shirt arrived, Joe. The Big Four.
Do I need to move the camera?
No, I got it. It's all on the camera right now.
All right.
I love it. The Big Four Wake Forest.
Look at those
shirt.
years.
What do we got? We got.
No, you got to open it back. 74.
74, 75.
It's like, hey, State, you won the national championship. Cool. We won the Big Four.
79, 76, and 80. The last one. 80 was the last one, right? So I love this shirt. It's incredibly comfortable. They got all sorts of stuff like this at Home Field Apparel. Go again, check them out online at homefieldapparel.com. Joining us on the Heaster Automotive Group hotline from the News and Observer, he is Steve Wiseman. He covers Duke. And did you just wake up from staying up all night working the phones to get confirmation on Mike Elko leaving the Blue Devils for Texas A&M?
Yeah, it was a late night. That's the grind sometimes. Planes come in the middle of the night, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was it finally got settled a little after midnight, probably. I don't know, 1 a.m., something in that range, but he's gone. He took a flight in the middle of the night and left town.
Okay. All right. So how did we get here? Exactly, because over the weekend, I think Mark Stoops at Kentucky was the head coach at Texas A&M for about 3 hours. At least on Twitter, he was the head coach for about 3 hours. And when that fell apart, you started to see, all right, Mike Elko is going to be this next target. But why Elko? Why now? And what was Duke doing behind the scenes to potentially keep him around?
Yeah, it was Stoops for a while there Saturday. We kind of dodged a bullet as far as that went from a Duke point of view. His Elko's kids were in the post-game press conference after Duke beat Pitt on Saturday, and I was talking to them about what bowl game they wanted to go to, and they were all fired up about maybe going to the Pinstripe Bowl. And so, they weren't like they thought at that point that like he was getting ready to go to A&M the next day. Mm-hmm. So what happened was once Stoops, the thing fell apart with Stoops, they turned right to Elko. They were like, all right, we've had enough of this. Here's somebody we know. He's done a good job. And the time was right, I guess, for him. It was time was right for him as well. Having had some private conversations with him, I wasn't sure if he'd be in this cycle or not. And he had said he was happy at Duke and he was comfortable with what they were doing. And as long as that continued, he'd be fine. But, when that bag of money's put in front of you, sometimes it might be hard to say no.
Yeah, I think people are confused on this one because I know there's a lot of people coming back at me like, oh, you said he wasn't going to leave. And I'm not going to sit here and get into who's right and who's wrong. I think in real life, Steve, stop me if you've ever heard this before, things can change.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're having a conversation with his kids one day and then, with the deal with Stoops falls through. And I suspect Texas A&M came back with a better offer is what I suspect.
Exactly right. And, it wasn't like he was, Elko was first and foremost in their mind. It wasn't like he was out there beating the drum to get the job because, again, just 10 days ago, he told me personally that nothing was going on at that point. So me and a couple others that's where we stood. And this has happened quickly. But, it's a job in the SEC. You don't have to worry about, conference falling apart kind of thing. The SEC's not going to fall apart. I know that was a concern of his. So, again, we always knew this was a possibility, and I think you guys said it too. He was never going to be Duke for life, right? I mean, that was not who he was. But he was comfortable here. He liked the academic part of it and all that. But in the end, you only get these offers every once in a while in your lifetime, and this is life-changing money for him and his family.
So we'll get out of here on this, Steve, and we appreciate the time. I know it's been a pretty wild 24 hours for you. Where does Nina King, the AD at Duke, go next for Duke football? For all the things that you just laid out too, in terms of where the ACC is going, the uncertainty of conference alignment and everything else. So where does Duke go next?
Right. I do know that last time in the search, the Marshall coach, Charles Huff, was somebody they really liked. And he'd only been at Marshall 1 year at that point. He'd been previously an assistant for Saban in Alabama. I'm not saying he's the number one guy right now, but that's kind of, I think, where they might be going is, maybe a head coach from a lower level conference. I mean, Charles Huff's salary at Marshall isn't even $1 million. So that's something Duke can really give him a nice bump and a lot more things to offer. So maybe somebody of that range, maybe possibility. The good thing about having another search only 2 years after the last one was a lot of those guys are still fresh. So it's not like there's a lot of.
What about Jimbo Fisher? I mean, because it's not offset language in the Texas A&M contract. So, I mean, you could probably get him for a bargain at this point.
How about that? Why not? Why not?
Why not? Never mind, he leaves programs in shambles when he's done. Why not? Maybe Jimbo Fisher's got time. Anyway, Steve Wiseman, News and Observer. Appreciate the time, man. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
One thing I wanted to expand on, Joe, and again, big thanks to Steve for hanging out, because you referenced it. People change their minds, situations change. When we talked about Mike Elko in Texas A&M, however many weeks ago that was, I think we were right. I don't think Texas A&M was something that he eyed when Jimbo Fisher got fired. He's like, that's the next job I'm going to take. But when it starts going down that list and they come to you and you see the money, I mean, look, the wise philosophers Wu-Tang Clan said it best. Cash rules everything around me. And there's some other factors too.
I think if Stoops takes the job, then
it's over.
Mike Elko's
he's still at Duke. He's still at Duke. He's not at Duke forever. He's looking at another job after that, but he's still at Duke.
I'm surprised. I am surprised that he took the job. I am.
And you know the reason why I'm surprised? Because we know the end.
Right.
We know what's going to happen we know what's going to happen to Mike Elko in 5 years.
Well, he'll only get 3, but
okay, fair.
I would say this, that here's the retort to that. When he took the Duke job, I would have said to him, that's a dead end job. You're not going to win there.
Mm-hmm.
And he did in 2 years.
Okay.
So I would say the same thing to him today, right? Like at Texas A&M is a dead end job. So good. You got the money to offset that.
Yeah, man.
But the truth of the matter is he did something at Duke that only Steve Spurrier had done. So maybe he can do what Spurrier did at Florida too. Look, he's going to have to beat every odd to do it.
Right. That's it. Well, Texas A&M is a strange place. It's different from other
and
top
he has
programs.
been there. So
and he has been there on a coordinator level. He's not. Yeah. He doesn't have to meet
not
with
at the crazy level.
He doesn't have to meet with the dog. Like, are you going to imprint yourself? Was it the Reveille is the name of the dog? He has to imprint himself. People will analyze the photo to see if the dog is vibing with Mike Elko. I'm not making this up.
It's a complicated job. Yes.
And then you got to deal with the Yale leaders. You got to get people to come play for you.
And now
you're
going to make me save the clip. But yes, Don Draper. That's what the money's for.
That's what the money is for. I get all that stuff. But what I'm surprised by is Mike Elko struck me as somebody that would want to go to take the Penn State job, as you said, or the Michigan State job or something like that. But maybe he's just looking, and this was pointed out to me by somebody. Actually, it was Dimitri who pointed this out to me. It's like, never underestimate backsliding in college football and your windows. Okay. So who's to say that, you know what, I'm going to skip out on this hiring cycle because I don't want the Texas A&M job. I'm going to wait for the Penn State job. I'm going to wait for XYZ. You're a hot name now based on what you've been able to do 2 years at Duke. You might not be a hot name in year 4, even in year 3.
Right.
And you come off that list and you might find yourselves in a Mark Stoops situation where Texas A&M wants you and then it goes to the board and they're like, wait, what? Because remember, Mark Stoops was the hot shit for a while there too. And they're not exactly coming off a banner year at Kentucky. So you end up in that situation that we've seen at Tennessee before where they go, you're not hiring that guy. And then Greg Schiano, Dave Doeren to a certain extent. And all of a sudden, you find yourself on the outside looking in for some of these jobs. So you know what? If the money's there, the money's there. I still don't think that from where we were a couple of weeks ago when Jimbo Fisher got fired and we talked about Mike Elko, that we were wrong in how we talked about it. But the hiring cycle, the coaching carousel is funny business, man. And here we are. Peace out to Mike Elko. Be curious to see what Duke does next.
We're moving on.
Before we move on, you might want to move on to the next topic. You might want to move on to another house.
In real life.
In real life, to another house. That's where Hometown
Maybe you want
Realty.
to go buy Mike Elko's house in Durham.
Maybe. Go to Hometown Realty, myhtr.com. Buy, sell. That's not new construction, though. But I'm sure it's a major house. I'm sure he's going to get some decent money for it.
You want to get into new construction in this area, in the Triangle, then Hometown Realty has your experts. They got 6 locations from here to the coast. They've got more than 250 agents. More than 60% of their business is in new construction. So you can fall for signs on the side of the road and you can hope and dream that you're going to get into one of these places and do it yourself and save 2 cents or whatever you think you're saving. No, get an expert, get the experts at Hometown Realty. Go to myhtr.com.
And if you got to go to closing, well, that's where Whitaker and Hamer comes into play. Check them out. WH.lawyer.
You did not really just forget the world's greatest URL.
I almost did, actually. Wow. I'm dragging, dude. I got that post-Thanksgiving malaise, and I wasn't even drunk on Saturday night. That's the wild part. That's really the wild part.
Not even supposed to be here.
Nah, man. It's, you know how it is. You have to get back in the routine after having a few days. I've been in decoration mode.
Yes, you have. The lights look great.
Decorating the back here of the wall, my side of the wall. Are you going to do anything to your side of the wall? Do I have to decorate for you?
Sir, don't you dare put any of your
Christmas stuff? You want like a stocking?
No.
Can I put a Christmas tree behind you?
No.
Fine.
Although Leanne on fire in the hallway.
Right. We got a Christmas tree. We got wreaths in the
Yeah.
hallway. Very excited about this. No, but if you're not sleepy like me, it should be really easy to remember. WH.lawyer. And look, they have all the legal stuff covered. You might even find yourself in a traffic violation.
I was going to say, all taken care of. Thanks to
You're
my
good?
friends
Good.
at Whitaker and Hamer. So you get yourself some help as well. WH.lawyer.
You might need to fire a head coach, and you have to look at contract language. I'm sure Whitaker and Hamer can look into that contract language and see, all right, so what do we owe Frank Reich? Exactly.
Oh, no. Are we there?
Oh, we're there. Dude, we are there. They're not going to fire. Now, look, it is 9:46 on a Monday morning, and I have not received an alert if they've decided to fire Scott Fitterer as the first domino for David. Joe Person of The Athletic had a tweet where David Tepper apparently was leaving the locker room and just yelled, fuck. Okay. Tepper did that. Let me see if I can pull up the Joe Person.
While
Tweet
you're doing that,
Yeah.
can I just, I saw this stat and it was wild to me. I know I mentioned it last week when
Sure.
the Matt Canada news came out, but the Steelers, they fired Matt Canada. It was their first in-season coaching change since 1941.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hysterical to me. Matt Canada was so bad. They hadn't done something since before World War II. What?
Brutal. Okay, here's Joe Person's tweet. This was after the game. Frank, where'd it go? Leaving the locker room, David Tepper shook his head and yelled, fuck. And then Frank Reich said he did not talk to David Tepper after the game. Frank Reich also calls this a winnable game, and that's actually the jumping off point as to why you probably have to fire Frank Reich one way or the other. It was a winnable game for the Carolina Panthers. To set this up, if you didn't watch the game, the Panthers defense did what the Panthers defense has done a decent enough job throughout most of the season. I'm not sitting here telling you that the defense is perfect. I'm simply saying that the Panthers defense has not been the problem this year. The Panthers' problem this year goes directly to the head coach, who's supposed to be the offensive mind, who demanded his play calling duties back and has mustered exactly 20 points in 2 games. So the defense does a really good job of keeping Tennessee out of the end zone for the entirety of the second half. So this gives you a chance. You're down 17-10. It's time to drive down the field. It's about 2 minutes to go on a 4th and 6. And they decide that they're going to throw a screen. Now, me, football pea brain goes, why the hell are you calling a screen? Joe, if you didn't see that, I can't pull it up because of rights fees. This is how I want you to imagine the final play of the game for the Panthers offensively. Do you know when you and I are playing Tecmo Bowl?
Yeah.
And I call a play and you also call that play defensively?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when that happens?
Oh, the other defense swarms your offense.
And suddenly the game is over. Just like that. So you can't get out. That's
Right.
what it looked like. It looked like tennis. It looked like Mike Vrabel went, oh, you went up A? I'm doing up A. And then all of a sudden, blah, right on top of them. And Bryce.
Mike Vrabel, next Patriots coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. He's the next Patriots coach who might get fired by Tennessee. It's hilarious to me. Is he intentionally tanking to get out of the Tennessee job so he can take the New England job, which we'll get to New England in a second. So this all happens. Bryce Young after the game says, look, man, that's on me. I had to check out of it. And that's how we ended up with DJ Chark getting a screen pass and him just being swarmed, unable to get the first down. And then after the game, Frank Reich also talked about how this was supposed to be a different kind of play, and Bryce checked out of it.
It looked like Bryce checked on that 4th down throw at the end. Was that the right check?
Yeah, we had something in. We talked about if they went zero, if they went all out blitz and went blitz zero, and so he made the right check.
What piece of that check gets you, 6 yards behind the stick?
Yeah, we have to. We've checked that play a couple times, and when you hit that play right versus zero, it's a touchdown, and when you hit that play right versus blitz zero, and if you execute it right, it's a touchdown. DJ probably came a little further back than he needed to. He's not normally the guy in there for that, but we had some receivers go, we had a couple guys go down. The play that we had called was going to put DJ on another in cut, not that he was primary. So we wanted him in that spot. So we just need to execute that better.
So again, that's Frank Reich after the game. Sheena Quick, who covers the Carolina Panthers, went to DJ Chark after the game to be like, hey, apparently you weren't even supposed to be here today, to reference that again. And DJ Chark was like, yeah, man, that should have been a different play call.
But they didn't go cover 0. So now my job is to get 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I have to check to see how far I was, but I felt like I got 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Got to watch film, see what it is. But the initial play, at the end of the day, I just do what I'm told to do. I run the routes that I'm told to run. So it's unfortunate that it didn't work out.
So there you go. A prime example of just what a shit show the Carolina Panthers are. You got the coach saying this, you got the wide receiver saying that. Again, Bryce Young is, I'm going to absolve Bryce Young here because he did and said the right thing after the game.
Sure.
It's on me. I checked out. But I want to close this entire sequence on that disastrous play on this. We can get into the football semantics. We can go hardcore. I'm eating turf and pylons and tell you on my all 22 film who was right, who was wrong, blah, 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 blah. That play illustrated what's been wrong with the Carolina Panthers this entire season with Frank Reich as the head coach. Looking unprepared. Also, leaving Bryce Young hanging out to dry where he gets blitzed and he has zero protection whatsoever. Guys on the bunch side of the field for the screen aren't blocking either. I watched this play like 10 times. It's an atrocious play. And when you go and watch the Panthers even further and you try to evaluate Bryce Young, you can't for a variety of reasons. Ike Ekwonu continues to be an adventure on the offensive line. The wide receivers cannot get open. People are like, oh, Bryce Young can't take that sack. Well, what's he supposed to do when every wide receiver is essentially locked down? And all of this is to say it's a failure of Scott Fitterer to put the right pieces around Bryce Young. It's a failure of the entire front office to even give up what they did to get Bryce Young, but you have them, so make it work. They can't do that. And then most importantly, the guy who's in charge of calling the plays continues to be so conservative and get it wrong so much that you cannot bring him back next year in the development of Bryce Young.
Let me remain consistent here. This is a Frank Reich problem.
Yes.
You could sit here and say, oh, the pieces aren't there. I didn't get to pick the ingredients, all those other things.
Yeah.
The Carolina Panthers have played 11 football games this year. In 8 of them, they've scored 17 points or less. Unless you are playing in the Big Ten West, that's simply not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
This is the NFL. You have to score at least 3 times in a football game. 3 touchdowns, okay? It's embarrassing. They brought him back. They thought he was the right move after Matt Rule. I agreed with the concept in premise.
Yeah.
His play calling has not been good. The players have not rallied around him.
No.
The development of Bryce Young, like you said, he's in full Trevor Lawrence under Urban Meyer mode at this point. There's nothing to be learned from this year. You cannot get a good draft pick because of what you gave up for Young. So literally, I said it 2 weeks ago. I will say it again. The Panthers, David Tepper, for all of his money, needs to buy a fast forward button.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to fast forward to get through this, figure out maybe in free agency how to reshape their roster.
But here's the problem.
That's the only way they have. They don't have draft capital. So they have to do something in free agency.
I know what you're saying with hitting the fast forward button, but are we fast forwarding to a different owner? Too?
Yeah, but that's
because
but here's the thing you have to understand about David Tepper. Unless he does something problematic legally or otherwise, he's going to be the ones who own the team. They couldn't get rid of the idiot in Washington, and they had a million reasons. They couldn't get rid. The NBA couldn't get rid of a flat out racist for decades. So you have to give up this fantasy.
I get
that David Tepper's going anywhere.
He's not going to go anywhere.
And I get it. He's on this crazy granular level of like making sure they switch to a 3-4. That's what they do in Blitzburg.
That's what I'm getting at. But will David Tepper, these guys are theoretically very, very smart. That's how they made their money. They identified something that nobody else
They're smart
could.
at what they are smart at. That doesn't mean they're smart at football.
They're not smart at football, but are they smart enough to recognize all the other times in my life where I've been successful? I'll do the assessments. I'll change. I'll go and do what I need to do to be successful.
He's doing that. It's paralysis by analysis right now.
So is this off season? Will he do his own self? Because you're right. He's not going to sell the team. There's no march on mint. There's none of that crap. So is he going to look himself in the mirror and go, do I want to be the next Dan Snyder? Do I want to be the next Jim Irsay? Do I want to be known as
Jim Irsay does have a Super Bowl title.
yeah, well, you know what? I'm unfairly targeting billionaires, as Jim Irsay pointed out, where we just live in a world where they're out to get white billionaires. That's why they stopped him when they stopped him, and they found all that money on him. Regardless, at some point, I am curious if David Tepper's looking at the failure that has occurred with all these coaching
I think he
moves,
is
and he
every
goes, you know
day,
what?
Joe.
Maybe I
need
need
every
to do
day.
Yeesh.
I think so.
Yeesh.
Like these guys are super over, and they literally drafted somebody who is a physical anomaly because he did well on a test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I am curious when it comes to Frank Reich.
He'll be fine.
No, he'll be
This
fine.
is not you or I getting thrown out on a Wednesday. This is the guy walking away with millions of dollars in his pocket.
He'll be fine.
He'll
I'm
go
not worried
be
about that.
He'll go be an analyst for one of his friends in the league.
He'll be fine. I'm not worried about him. The question I was going to ask is what happened with Frank Reich this season more embarrassing than Matt Rule? Has he out embarrassed Matt Rule?
No, because I haven't heard the excuses from him. To be perfectly honest.
I mean, he talks himself in circles.
Yeah, because he doesn't know. Like, he's a guy who's conflicted. Like, this was all on paper. It made a whole bunch of sense.
Oh,
and now he's in it, and it doesn't.
They fired Frank
I can't see
Reich.
it. Okay,
they fired Frank Reich. That happens live. I'm glad it happened now, in the middle of us recording this. As we're doing this, Frank Reich fired. This is from ESPN. From David. This is not even credited to David Newton. It's just a straight up news report. Source confirmed to ESPN the Panthers have an NFL worst 1-10 record. Yada yada yada. Panthers on Sunday scored 15 or fewer points for the 5th straight week and for the 7th time in 11 games. So there you go. Frank Reich was fired while we're recording.
Are they going to turn this thing over to McNown and say,
hold on a second,
maybe he's the answer?
Hold on a second.
I mean, there's too many other guys there for it not to be.
Let's
do the whole thing over again if you'd like.
No. Actually, we're going to keep this in here because I think it's freaking hilarious that it's all happening in real time. It actually makes, you know what? I feel it in my plums again. I felt alive on Saturday because we're doing shit
We're
live.
taking calls.
We're literally doing this live right now. Okay, the team is officially announced. This is from Mike K, Charlotte Observer. At some point, how does Scott Fitterer still have a job, by the way? How do you not just throw everything out at this point and get ready for the next season? How does that happen? Anyway. Jeez, what a mess. What an absolute mess. And then Seth on Twitter. Hold on a second. Let me actually pull this up because it's actually pretty funny from Seth on social media. I have a feeling we're getting ready to have separate pods from Ovies and Giglio on this, Elko to A&M, and Canada's firing. Love the After Dark pod post NC State UNC. You know what? We'll spend some more time on this later, but I did want to shout out because I feel for Doeren Gant, our friend over at Panthers.com. Hasn't been fun for Doeren Gant the last couple of days.
These are tough years.
These are tough years for Doeren Gant, but he mailed us his t-shirts. So this is from Doeren, from one OG to the other. Happy Festivus. So let me go get the shirts real quick. I'll be right back. Vamp for a bit, Joe.
I'm chewing on a coffee bean.
Are you literally chewing on a coffee bean right now, dude?
I'm trying to get my juices flowing.
All right, so hold on a second. Let me start yelling. So anyway, so Doeren went ahead and he sent us some t-shirts.
Ooh,
because Darren's awesome, and it's from his mailbag. I'm sure his mailbag is going to be off the charts great. So it's Ask the Old Guy t-shirts. I got
a typewriter.
Yeah, it's a typewriter. This is the large. This is 100% cotton, so don't shrink it. Extra large for you.
Thank you.
So there you go. So shout out to Doeren. We're going to send him a. We're going to send him a hoodie.
I like that brand too.
Oh yeah, the brand is really, really good.
Yeah,
the brand is excellent. So there you go, folks. Live to tape. That's how we do here on Ovies and Giglio. We'll spend some more time talking about this tomorrow.
Every time we do. It's brought to you by Graffiti.
You think Frank Reich wants a stiff bourbon right now? But like you said, he's good, right? He's good with his money.
Frank's, yeah. I mean, I was going to say he's like super religious, so I don't know if he does drink, but that doesn't include one does not. Those aren't mutually exclusive ideas. He's probably relieved because you get money and now he doesn't have to torture himself on a weekly basis because he just has never seemed comfortable in these press conferences talking about.
No, he never does.
You know,
he's never. There was the optimism
Again, Joe, just use the stat. 8 of 11 games, they've scored 17 points or less. You can't be the offensive coordinator and play caller and be that inept and still be employed. It doesn't matter what year it is.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing: as I'm getting composure as to the news. I wasn't, because I said at the beginning of this segment that I can't imagine Frank Reich getting fired in the middle of the season. They'll move on from Frank Reich. That's why I had my phone nearby for the most part, because I figured we were going to get some ESPN alert for something today. Something today. My speculation would be how these things typically work. Scott Fitterer has been around for 2 iterations of these coaching failures, and that he would be the first to go. That would be the first indication to go. And then they'll let Frank Reich play out the rest of the year, and then that'll be a wrap. I'm going to be really curious to see what David Tepper has to say about why now. What was it about this game that finally got you to go, fine, whatever? Is this a lesson learned from the Matt Rule era? Because remember, you and I sat there and spent a good chunk of time talking about, you can't bring that dude back. We know where this is headed. And you decided to bring him back for that 3rd year. And then, of course, he gets fired in the middle of the season. If we all recognize that Frank Reich was going to be fired, at least do it at the end of the year.
Tepper is literally the anti-Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. The Steelers went from 1941 to 2023 without firing anybody in the middle of the season. Now, David Tepper, who was a former minority owner of the Steelers, has fired a head coach 2 years in a row in the middle of the season.
Yes. Actually, you know what? I'm not done on this topic, Joe.
Okay.
I was ready to move on to something else, but I'm actually not done on this particular topic, because I do have an angle going forward before we discuss who it could possibly be that's the interim coach, who could actually be the next head coach. The real question is, who wants to work with David Tepper at this point? Because let's look at the list of firings that have taken place since he's taken over for the Carolina Panthers. You get rid of Ron Rivera, who, by the way, is probably on his way out at Washington.
He lost to Tommy DeVito, right? Those are the rules.
Yeah, those are the king of New York quarterbacks, by the way.
Those are the rules.
Real quick aside, you don't think Aaron Rodgers is watching Tommy DeVito take over New York and going, damn it, this is supposed to be my city? And he even has like the Italian, like he's doing the finger thing after touch. Have you seen that? The celebration? He's doing the finger thing. He's making the pizza. He's making the pasta. I bet you that's what Aaron Rodgers is going to do on the Pat McAfee show on Tuesday. He's like, hey, I'm Italian too. I'm walking here, guys. I'm just like Tommy DeVito. Even though he's a California kid. Regardless. Manja, Joe, manja. Got me on that. I did get you on that one. So, Ron Rivera, as somebody pointed out, I think it was Mike Tanier, who writes for The Messenger, covers the NFL, pointed out that Ron Rivera is the modern day Jeff Fisher. If you need a guy to go 8-8, 7-9, 9-8, whatever, then he's your guy, right? So the question is going to be, given what David Tepper has done, where you fire Ron Rivera, which was justifiable, you hire Matt Rule only to fire him, you don't even let Frank Reich get through year 1, for heaven's sake, okay?
11 games.
A pretty well-respected guy in NFL circles. You didn't even get through the first year. Didn't they fire the Charlotte FC coach in the middle of the season after they literally just hire him? Anyway, we can
I think there might have been some problem.
Were there some problems? Okay, I just double check on that one. I got to double check on that one.
Why else would you fire a soccer coach?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, this is the same guy who decided, I'm going to build something in Rock Hill until I'm not, and go full The Office. I declare bankruptcy. Because yes, David Tepper can declare bankruptcy. So the reason why I say this is because as I was monitoring Twitter in real time, I do think that Louis Riddick at ESPN probably put it best as to the shit show that is the Carolina Panthers under David Tepper. Your offensive line stinks. You have no playmaking weapons. You passed on the QB that you should have taken in CJ Stroud. Fire the head coach. That'll solve everything. Makes perfect sense. This league sometimes, man. And what he's referencing is no accountability for the owner. Fine. I'll take that out of it. He's the owner of the team. He doesn't have to be accountable to anyone but his bottom line and his cash. But I still come back to how in the world, unless I've missed something in the firing press releases and the comments, that Scott Fitterer still has a job. How? Because to Louis Riddick's point, Frank Reich was just here. Scott Fitterer has also been making decisions. And that's why if you're David Tepper and you want to see if you can turn things around, you go to the people, you go to the fans and you say, we're going completely clean slate. I've learned my lesson. We're getting a coach and a general manager who are on the same page, and I'm going to let my football people take over. And unless he says that, unless David Tepper says that, you're going to get more apathy for the Carolina Panthers going forward. That building is going to be empty for the foreseeable future. Because I'm telling you, well, unless you have opposing team fans.
No, I'm just saying the thing in the NFL is you can turn it around. Like the NFL really is a just add water league.
Yeah.
You got to get the right coach though. And you got to make the right personnel moves. So we'll see what they do. I'm not saying like give David Tepper some grace. Of course he deserves a lot of this blame, but like I said, 8 of 11 of the games, you can't score 17 points. That's embarrassing.
It's completely embarrassing. It's completely embarrassing.
Like that can't be.
Look at the
you go to a single wing, do something else. Look at Steve Wilkes. We're going to run on every down. Effing run on every down. Then if that's what works, you have to try to solve some problems. You can't just sit here and be like, I'm going to throw a screen on the last play of the game when we need it. Like, come on, man. And they're like, oh, that was what the cover 0. Shut up. Call better plays.
You say embarrassing.
Do a better job.
You say embarrassing. I mean, you see what's happening in New England?
Totally. Again, did you lose to check the box? Did you lose to Tommy DeVito? Yep. Those are the rules. You're out. See ya.
Hey, Tommy DeVito. You probably related to Tommy DeVito, aren't you? You got like an Uncle Nunzio.
I don't think, first of all, Nunzio Campanelli was the interim coach for Syracuse this week. Nunzio and his brother Vito and his pops, they ran North Jersey back in the day.
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Yeah. No, Joe, not all Italians in North Jersey are related. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I get the same thing. Like, hey, aren't you from South Florida? You're Cuban. Don't you know such and such?
You're related to Levitard, right?
Oh, yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You're both of you, right?
Yes. You, Levitard and George Sedano, right?
Yeah.
And you all run the same family, right? Well, I'm friends with George, but
your blood,
but we're not all related. Well, that was a hot mess of a segment. You know what's not a hot mess? Butcher's Market. Everything is organized. Everything is ready to go. Everything is fresh. And maybe you've got some holiday entertaining that you're going to be doing. You just got out of Thanksgiving. Did you go to Butcher's Market for the appetizers? Did you go to Butcher's Market for the sides? Maybe you didn't. Lesson learned. Take some of that work off your plate. Go to Butcher's Market where they have a lot of prepared food, man. A lot of prepared meals to make life simple.
Good. Yeah. And the hangover things too. I'm telling you, I took one yesterday. Changed my day.
Yeah. I was going to say, did it work?
Yesterday was rough.
All right.
Had the Canes game for AP.
Yeah.
Had my Saturday road.
Yeah.
That's why I was like tweeting at like 11 o'clock at night because I had a rally. I had to get that stuff done.
Absolutely brutal. And a big thanks to Breeze Through. Again, we've mentioned Breeze Through a bunch today. Cannot thank Breeze Through enough for helping us out on Saturday for that live show. It was a lot of fun. And the coffee, man, I had the Breeze Through blend. I didn't go the dark roast. I went the blend.
Oh, yeah.
Kept me through the night, man. I changed it up. Kept me through the night. I was excited.
Slightly surprised by that, but.
Well, I was telling Adam that typically when I go to that Breeze Through, I'm hydrating. I get the water,
right?
Get gas, etc. Like that time of day, I'm not trying to drink coffee.
Mm-mm.
But hey, man, it was late. I'm old. I need the caffeine.
I was alive. It was the fire.
It was the fireball. It was the fireball, dude. That's what that was about.
I was feeling good.
And
you're like, it's cold. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
You know who else was feeling good and full? The ESPN ACC network crew, because you took them Oakwood Pizza Box.
Yeah, big shouts to Wes for having us over there on, was it Friday night?
It was Friday night, yeah.
Yeah. Great crew, Taylor. They do such a great job. Tim Hasselbeck, we chopped it up, had a little Tom O'Brien stories, interesting takes. He was definitely the icy commander to Tim, not smiling Tom. So yeah, good stuff, man. And of course, the best part was the pizza. Can't go wrong. Get the square. And Anthony went 3-0 with his NFL picks again this week. He's kicking my ass. So my dreams of an OG named item on the menu are slowly fading.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
My brother was there.
He was. I saw him Friday night when I picked up the pies. I saw his wife. Yep. Met her.
Yeah,
very
Emily.
nice.
Emily was getting as my brother joked. Emily was getting a tour of OG sponsors
Yeah.
while she was in town.
I believe he did say something about the wings.
Yeah, because he was gonna get wings. He actually went to graffiti after going to
Really?
Oakwood Pizza Box.
That's awesome.
So anyway, Oakwood Pizza Box brings you Hey Joe, and you can hit us up on
Are
Twitter.
you proud of me, by the way? Like
Why?
I felt like you should be
And
proud
by
of
the
me.
way, apologies for not joining you on that delivery. I had
No,
to make
you had trees.
I had to make a family business decision that evening,
Yeah.
so it is what it is.
All right, are you proud of me? I know
For
you
what?
don't watch Picks and Pizza, but I was able to set up
Why
the
do you say
equipment
that?
on my own, on location, and I got it to work.
I know
And I
you,
hooked it up to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi.
But I used the cord.
Good for you.
Right?
You got it to the router.
The router. Okay.
I was proud of you. I knew you did because I was up here.
Yeah, you were like,
Dude, I had a moment of panic.
I know. I meant to text you because I saw the water bottle.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? He's probably going to come up here. And I really should text him so he does not shit his pants when he sees our only investment missing.
So it wasn't it wasn't about it wasn't about the water bottle while I was up here. So our neighbors, Rick and Sabrina, their son Owen has gotten like the podcasting bug.
Okay.
He's like, I really want to know what's the equipment? What do you need? Blah, 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 blah. So I said, well, why don't you just come up? I mean, we're out of school, whatever. So we came up here on what was it?
Friday.
It was Wednesday.
Wednesday, you're right.
It was Wednesday. So we came up here on Wednesday to show him the stuff. And I was actually going to get him to do a segment with the equipment and everything. And
we were robbed.
I was like, all right, Owen, you're going to give me, because Jacob and Caleb were up here too. And I was kind of like, all right, why don't we do like a Mount Rushmore of Pokemon? You know, something silly, right?
Yeah.
So I opened the door and I see the Roadcaster gone. And I was like, ah, shit. Like, who did I not, like, I had a free, like, did I not lock up? Because did Joe not lock up?
I not mean to do that to
But
you.
then it got weird because I was like, okay, the Roadcaster's gone, the cameras are gone, but the most expensive thing isn't.
What is that?
The mics.
Oh, really?
No, actually, the two mics and the Roadcaster are actually about the same cost.
Okay.
So anyway, microphones are expensive, dude. There are microphones.
And you have a microphone fetish.
I do have a fetish. There are microphones that cost like double what this is. Okay. Now,
Yeah, I
mind
believe
you,
that. Sure.
Mind you, I've heard some really, really terrible podcasts that are being done on incredibly expensive mic. Shout out to Kofi who makes fun of these guys. These podcasts are like, they'll be like, you know what? I don't think sleep is really important or whatever it is. Like there's these terrible.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Oh, yeah, you know, the grind set. And Kofi will pop up. Kofi's brilliant, man. I wish I had some of the ideas he has on shorts. And Kofi will go on. He's like, I just want you to know that this horrible take was set on a microphone that cost $800. Just so you know. Just so you know. I'm like, ooh, brutal. Anyway, so I walk in and I see it, and my mind's racing. Did we get robbed? But that doesn't make any sense because the lights are still here.
Nobody took the clock.
Who
wouldn't want the clock?
Like, I'm sorry, these neon ropes and stuff like that. Like that's all stuff that people want too. Where did it all go? I'm like, oh, maybe my initial thought was that you were trying to be nice and you took the equipment to get it ready for Saturday.
No,
but that wasn't the case.
No.
Anyway, in lieu of a Hey Joe segment, most of our Hey Joe stuff was in reaction to the live show that we did on Saturday.
Okay.
And the number one question or statement that we got was, you should do more of these. Total agreement with you on that. However, let me just preface my answer by saying that a State Carolina football game at the end of the season on a Saturday night makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Can't be doing this all willy-nilly now.
Right.
So the question is that I pose to people who have made it this far into the podcast and fought through our live reaction to Frank Reich getting fired. What is another sporting event locally that would generate that kind of heat? Would a Duke Carolina basketball game generate that kind of heat? Would they allow us to do a live show from ACC Hospitality on the Friday night of the semifinals in DC? Because that would be another thing that we could do. Just have our friends come through while we're sucking down free Miller Lights.
Yeah, there's got to be, I would think maybe something with the NCAA tournament. Is it in Raleigh this year?
I don't know. I haven't looked that far. So a homework assignment for our listeners. What would be the next logical?
It also needs to be
dark?
a high traffic area. That was key. Like
that was
being
key
there
too.
was key.
Yes, that was key as well. So that would be our homework assignment for you. What would be the next logical OG after dark in the future?
Does it have to? Well, no, I was alive in I was alive with the Sound of Music, so we're okay.
Well, yeah, I think we found the key to unlock you at night. Alcohol.
Oh, it's in Charlotte. This year.
Fireball.
Charlotte, not Raleigh.
So you just do Fireball. You're good to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. We'll spend some more time on Frank Reich getting fired and also basketball vibe checks because it's time, baby.
Write that book, babes.
It's time. It's time for me.
Hey, babe.
Now it's time for me to make sure that my Ken Palm subscription is up to date because it's about to be Ken Palm net season, folks. We'll see you then.